In late April, early May, the city was in the eye of the storm. The wailing sound of ambulance sirens filled the streets day in and day out, as if the city was crying, a constant reminder of the devastating toll the virus was taking. Many were now working from home at reduced hours, while others were laid off and out of work altogether. For the essential workers, there were long days and risks of infection. Everyone was isolated due to social distancing, and for the elderly and for those who lived alone, it was a very lonely time. Residents by now understood the impact on the virus on one's physical health, but up until that moment, few would have guessed the profound toll it would take on everyone's mental health.
Before COVID-19 hit, 40% of New Yorkers did not have enough money to make ends meet. Overnight, we saw a complete loss of income as so many people had to, shelter in place and social distance and not go to work. And for many low-income New Yorkers, if you don't work, you don't get paid.
When I was trying to find work, I was trying to find like stuff like in little restaurants and stuff that was still open. Like not restaurants, like McDonald's and like fast food restaurants that was still working and stuff. So that was as far as what I was trying to do, but I didn't have any work. So like it was hard to, transition into like paying the bills without working, paying my phone bill, the internet. Like I spoke to you, like the internet is currently off right now, so I'm using my younger brother who came back from his friend's house, um, phone. But I came up with a plan. So right now I'm actually watching a few kids for a profit. So that's actually benefiting me a little bit. That's actually helping me during this time. And right now, the best I can do is supply food and just food and a little bit of essentials I need with the money I'm getting from watching kids.
Pre-COVID, a lot of Black-owned businesses were struggling. Okay, so this is, or have been struggling, dealing with the rent and other operational issues, and dealing with food, people coming into their stores, a lot of challenges. We now know how online sales is really having a strong impact on brick and mortar stores. The restaurants, the Black-owned restaurants, were not struggling as much, but in an area where you have a high concentration of certain types of restaurants, like a high concentration of Caribbean restaurants, your food has to be pretty good for you to survive. So if it is, so the competition comes into play there. The retail Black-owned businesses were struggling even prior to the pandemic. Yes, and so there it was. As a bid, we were working very hard with them to try to get them to be a little more creative.
So the people who I know who are unemployed, again, it seems to be kind of just a return to this community-based care. So people have moved back home with their parents, those who have the luck and ability to do that. I personally have been sending money to some friends who needed it. I lent a significant sum of money to a friend who was moving in the middle of the pandemic and didn't have the necessary funds to put down a deposit. I think people are just relying on their networks. They're relying on their friends. They're relying on their families. I shudder to think of folks who are in less caring communities or who, for whatever reason, are afraid to ask for help.
We saw a dramatic, almost a doubling of a rise in hunger and food insecurity in the city, as 700,000 school children were no longer in school where they got most of their meals, and they really depended on the system to get a healthy food. And so that was huge.
One of our local real estate brokers got two families to share a 3-bedroom space. They could not pay their rents, and she got the both of them to come together. These are two strangers, two families, to work, to come together and live in a 3-bedroom space, and they're now sharing that space and paying the rent together. Now, this is where the whole creativity concept comes in, and this is how people are adapting to difficult situations. I'm not saying this is happening all over, but you know, people are surviving on employment receipts. You know, and there is no telling, but it's time that is just going to tell us how impactful this is. The city also and state came up with regulations that landlords could not kick anybody out of their apartments until I think October. So, you know, it's still a wait and see game.
I know a lot of people who were very depressed throughout the pandemic. I knew a lot of, I'd seen coworkers depressed. I'd seen other colleagues depressed. I'll never forget, I was standing outside the emergency department and I was talking with one of my colleagues, and we were just kind of shooting the breeze and taking a little bit of break in the ambulance bay. And we saw EMS had pulled up with a patient. And one of the EMS workers was yelling at the patient at the top of his lungs. And you can clearly see that the lady was altered. She wasn't at her best. And you know, we didn't know if she had a psychiatric issue, or she was, you know, really altered because of illness or infection, or was having a stroke. We didn't know any of that stuff. But he was yelling at the top of his lungs, and you know, at her to sit still and sit upright. But you could clearly see that he was stressed. He was triggered, almost like shaking. And it's like, okay. And so we went over there right when they pulled up, and you know, assessed her and said, I was like, she's altered and now she's seizing. I was like, this is not somebody who's having a psychotic break. This is something much different. And she wound up being in critical condition. Right, you know, like, you know, once she got her vital signs and done a number of quick diagnostic studies, she was critical. We're talking about a matter of minutes. But I just saw that the EMS worker, and I understood what he was feeling. He was so frustrated because there are so many people, and this lady was talking to him at some point, and then like a few seconds later, she wasn't, and was acting goofy and confused, and he was kind of like, look, I'm already tired and overworked and stressed out, and now I have somebody who won't sit right and won't help. We can't get them situated in the back of the bus, so now you're making my life more complicated because I haven't really had a chance to de-stress, process what I'm experiencing. This whole concept of stress isn't anything new. Athletes deal with it. You know, as an emergency physician and anybody who works in emergency and disaster environments, you're always dealing with stressful situations because people aren't at their best, and you have to make split-second decisions. But there's a time frame where you can process what's going on. After you leave your shift, after you go home, you know, many of us have our own specific rituals on how to, I don't want to say decontaminate, but just de-stress. And we've been, you know, some of us who've been practicing for a lot longer have these formalized ways in which we do that that's been effective. The problem is when we left the hospital, first thing that happens, and even throughout your shift, you're getting pages and text messages from your friends and loved ones about them worried about you, and then also really them worried about their own symptoms. And so the same stuff conversations that you were having about your patients with them and their family members, you're now having with your own loved ones. And those text messages and phone calls last throughout the entire night.
I think people were in a state of panic and confusion. I think that the we're all always afraid of dying. But we walk around most of the time sort of, unless we have a serious illness, sort of well defended against whether that's going to happen to us right away or not. Suddenly it seemed to be right at our doors, and we didn't know how and when it was going to strike us. It felt like it was, all we had to do was breathe and we could die.
My concerns for my own life, being HIV positive for, on paper, 36 years, because I was for many years before I tested. Because I am undetectable. I've been undetectable for years. I have a good T cell count, but because my immune system is always on inflammation, I am very scared of getting COVID, you know? And anytime I cough, sneeze, you know, you go, oh my God, you know, like, you know, could this be it? I mean, a normal, healthy person nowadays, if you cough or sneeze, you go. So, you know, and I'm at work, I clean the toilets. I'm cleaning up human feces. I'm cleaning up vomit. I'm cleaning, you know, and I'm not being recognized for it. They're not giving me hazard pay at my job. They're not, the government is not giving us hazard pay. They don't care. They don't care, you know, like, and that just makes me it makes me pissed off. It makes me pissed off that they don't care, you know? But you know what? The bottom line is somebody has to do it. And you know what? I take care of myself. Me and Maria, you know, I take care of myself. I eat right. I meditate all the time. And I pray. I'm very spiritual. And I know that God's got me.
Us being cooped up in the house, that does play a toll. It does, because I have happy places outside of my house. I do. You know, like our local guitar center means so much to me. Like, you know, me going there just playing out, because I don't have my own guitar yet, but me going there playing guitar, playing the drum set, you know, or just singing in like the soundproof rooms, you know, things like that can help to calm, you know, the thoughts that we may have, you know, every day. But just now, just being cooped up in the house, and, you know, we have nothing to do. As far as like my depression, I have I'm not like, oh, that like I've been diagnosed, right? So it's like I know people who are like me, who have depression, who have you know, whether it's PTSD, and they're just sitting there, and they can't do anything, they can't go anywhere, they have no real outlet, and the government's not going to give you one. So at this point, you kill yourself, or either the virus is going to kill you. You know, that's how this plays out, and they definitely don't care if you're a minority.
My cousin did not get infected by COVID-19, but he did get a cut on his wrist. So that's very dangerous because there is a possibility of infection, etc. And you know, blood was gushing out from it was a cut from a glass like shard. So it was pretty serious. He went to the hospital, got a few stitches, and you know, it took like a week or so for him to completely heal. And the reason that I think it's connected to COVID-19 is because like everyone just broke down. Like I thought, you know, my family was strong, but you know, like I feel like even at the face of this uncertainty, like, you know, there was a lot of tears, there was a lot of concern, like, you know, what if? And like I feel like that's a lot of things that's surrounding a lot of families right now, especially like if you're a family, you know, you're a minority or you're like a low income like family, like you're even more concerned because you may not have the resources to access medical facilities. You know, you may not be treated in the right way. Like, you know, there's a lot of concern about that.
My mother is going to be 90 October 25th, and none of us could see her. I saw my mother last in our Christmas time. We celebrate Boxing Day. I have 9 brothers and sisters, and so we celebrate Boxing Day. And you know, just so all family members can see, we got so many cousins and stuff, and we never got to see them. So then we said, so like 20 years ago or something, let's have Boxing Day, then all cousins can see each other. And so the last time I seen her was Boxing Day, and because then COVID hit, you know, I go out there once a month, and nobody got to see her, and she lives in an apartment in the house I grew up in. My sister bought the house. So, my sister Julianne, she's an RN. She's an essential worker at St. Catherine of Siena in Smithtown. And she would just go downstairs by the door and just talk through the door to my mom. And it's so hard for my mom,
I saw a lot of people like, pray for the people who have like mental health issues, who definitely have depression, anxiety, OCD. They have, borderline personality disorder. They have all these things. And it's just like coming from a person who has, some of the things I even just listed, like it's so easy for you to slip back into your hole. It's so easy for you to get dark again. It's so easy for you to get into a place where you don't want to be without quarantine.
I don't feel isolated because my husband died in 1996. All my children were gone and grown. So I was left alone. So I managed. But you see, I'm creative, so I could do a lot of things. You see, so I don't get bored, and I read a lot.
The way we cope with the situation at hand, which was very difficult, was to come together in the office and just try to console each other or laugh. We have our phones. We would listen to music, try to watch something that could take our minds away. But also for me personally, the way I cope with it is that, I have a faith base that believes that we physically die, but we don't spiritually die. And so I understand that, and it puts it in a different perspective that our spiritual bodies are always among us. And it's something that we all have to meet that. We just don't want to meet it in a horrible way. Meditation, I meditate and I pray. And so I utilize all of those spiritual tools at hand to kind of get me in another space, because it's difficult. It's difficult. And I'm almost to the point where I truly don't know if I could do a second round.
I do have to admit, prison did prepare me for this one, because I can go long times in isolation, so where everybody else would start talking to themselves in the mirror, I'd just be in my bed reading a book or meditating. But actually, it hasn't, because I'm sort of a hermit myself. I'm in the house. I'm in the house. But I could imagine. I done had some friends tell me, man, I need to go out. I need to hit a bar up. I need to catch a movie. It's driving me crazy in here. Or my wife is driving me insane. Or I done have female friends telling me, my husband over there is driving me insane. I need to get away. I need to go on vacation. It's driving me crazy. I'm starting to talk to myself, and I'm like, man, I'm glad I was prepared for this.
I know people who are writing their wills to their children, to their family members, to their brothers, to their sisters, to their pets. I don't know, to their pets. But it's gotten to the point where people are so scared of what's going on. It's gotten to the point of people are just like, this is the worst case to die. This is probably like the worst way to die. I've heard people say that.
As Black men in this society. To me, the beauty of this is I got to say, Rob, if you want to be safe, you got to talk to a therapist.
We had a family who, single mom who got sick. She had two young kids, one in the third grade and one in kindergarten. And she was hospitalized, and she left her children in the care of another adult, and they got scared and left the kids. So she had to come home. Her kids had been alone. She didn't have any food. She was still recovering. And so the network of providers that we work with had to make sure that she had what she needed, that she had food, that she had money, that the kids were cared for. And, while we're all dealing with our own personal challenges, we certainly had to have foremost our service to community and what we needed to do.
My mental health has been under pressure, and it's been very poor, and it's been tested constantly. But and I go low, and I have to fight to find ways to get high. You know, like up, joyful, cheerful, and it's not easy. But it's under pressure right now. It's just that I done got a little tough where I can handle it from all what I've been through. And half the time I don't know how I got there. So it's very painful.
We're not okay. So as Black men, our mental health is questionable as it is. The majority of us suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder and are not being diagnosed. The idea that mental health treatment in our communities is such a is such a stigma attached to it. We're just internalizing this, and the way the country treats us and the way the world treats us and our responsibility to our families and to our communities. I personally see a therapist regularly because I want to be a blessing to other folks. And I know there were times during this pandemic where I questioned my existence, and I questioned whether or not my leadership would be enough to get us through this, to get us to the other side, and whether or not I'd be alive literally to be able to parent my children.
The COVID-19 Writers Project was made possible thanks to the support of BK Reader, Brooklyn Community Foundation, National Geographic Society, and the Pulitzer Center.